Ego is the symbol for the collection of beliefs you hold to be true. So in a sense, you can see the ego as acting as a sort of gatekeeper of your belief systems. So if the ego is a gatekeeper for your belief systems, it's not so much imperative that you get rid of it, but instead check the beliefs that you have already and see what it is you're actually protecting, because this is defining your identity. So the beliefs you hold to be true are determining what kind of person you are, and your personality, how you come across to other people, how you express yourself to the world. This is what people see on a very surface level, but nonetheless it's still an important part to check, because this is the foundation of who we are. So if we want to be more authentic, we first need to evaluate what kind of beliefs we're protecting. So instead of protecting beliefs that say that you need to be right, or that you need to be angry about a situation, or that violence solves problems, you can instead replace with beliefs like, I am powerful, I am untouchable by the dark, I am capable of holding my peace in chaotic situations, I am loving, I am positive, I am courageous, I am worthy, I am capable of achieving my dreams. These are the kinds of beliefs you want to implant and protect, because as you affirm these beliefs as true for you, then you'll in a sense give your ego a new role, which is to protect beliefs that empower you instead of deconstruct and disempower you. So now when it comes to programming these new beliefs, I'll give you a very simple method of doing that. Now you communicate to the mind with symbols. This is why you have dreams. The subconscious is communicating to you where you are, what you need to work on, where your what I call your leading block is, so what you currently need to be focused on, or wherever your thoughts go when you try to enter a space of stillness. You can tell what your leading block is because your mind will immediately go to this thing. It'll be the current worry. It'll be like headline news in your mind, so to speak. So you want to use this method of communication so that you can communicate messages to your subconscious mind from your conscious mind. So in order to do that, you can, for example, go into a relaxed state, or a state of meditation if you like. It's very simple. Just take a few deep breaths. Try and bring awareness to as much of your body as you can. Really try to inhabit your body and flood it with your consciousness. So in a sense, feel your hands without looking or thinking about them, and feel the top of your head and the life there, or the blood rushing through it, any pulsating feelings, any tingling feelings. These are all signs that you want to be looking for. So as you're relaxing, try and feel different parts of your body. Try and scan it, in a sense, for any tense parts, any restrictions, and try and breathe into those parts and release them. And as you do that, you'll enter a deeper state of relaxation and meditation. And when you're there, for example, I like working with visuals. Visuals help me a lot because I find they trigger emotions more strongly sometimes, especially when you're doing very specific work. So if it were me, for example, I would first imagine myself sitting in a very comfortable place in nature, somewhere that instantly brings relaxation and peace, and I'd imagine sitting there. And if I wanted to, for example, assign a new role to my ego, I would imagine a symbol representing my ego. So it could, in a sense, be a younger version of myself, or a childish version of myself, and this will represent ego. It could be anything. It could be an animal if you want. It could be a symbol, it could be literally anything that immediately pops to your mind when you think of ego. So you have this symbol, and say I'm sitting there and I now have my symbol for ego, which is a very childish version of myself, and I see it approaching me, and then it sits down in front of me. So what I would do then, I would, for example, talk to this part of myself from the perspective of the highest version of myself I'd want to be. So, in other words, someone who has a set of belief systems that are encouraging and empowering to myself. So I would speak from that perspective to this childish part. So now I know this might come across as a little silly at first, but it can be very meaningful, very symbolic if you put your heart into it. So really just trust it, have fun with it. This is not something that's supposed to be serious. Like, if anything, take it as an experiment. And I want you, for example, when you're talking to this part of yourself, speak to it with loving kindness and compassion, not with the kind of dictator type voice and saying you need to change this and do that. Come from a place of understanding, because you understand this disturbed inner child because of what it's gone through. So you're being compassionate, you're being empathic, and so speak from that place. And in a loving way, for example, I would ask this symbol for my ego to change its role so that it protects beliefs that empower me and make me feel good and feel strong and confident. So simply having a sort of dialogue like this, this is communicating to the subconscious mind a clear message. You're telling it, ego, protect only positive beliefs. Or, you can do this with different areas of your life as well. You can do it with, for example, a part of yourself that reflects self-sabotaging. You could do it with a part of yourself that reflects impatience. Part of yourself that reflects fear. You can do this with any part of yourself, and you'd simply make a symbol for it. You talk to the symbol, give it a new role, give it a new meaning, and in a sense you're rewiring your brain to a new map. So essentially what you're really trying to do is plant a seed wherein you can communicate to your subconscious mind that you want to change something, and that in itself is a very powerful thing, because it will initiate a healing process, and you'll clearly see it reflected in your reality once you do this. So that's another thing you can look for to see evidence of it working. So I call this process review and rewrite. So you're reviewing a part of yourself and you're rewriting the coding, so to speak. So this is how your subconscious works. It's all code. It's all like a big computer program that you can just program whatever you want into it with feeling and that repetition of that feeling. So using this as a basis for programming, let's do an example. Okay, so here's an example. Another way of doing review and rewrite is, for example, at the end of your day, right before you go to bed or as you're lying in bed, review your day. Point out any key parts that you think could have been better, or that you could have done something more in, or anything like that. And as you're reviewing those parts, now this again might sound a little bit strange, but it really is very powerful and effective. As you're replaying the clip in your mind, I want you to imagine it the way you would have rather it have gone. So how would that situation have played out in your favor if it were up to you to do again? So when you do that, really the key here is to generate emotion and to generate that positive emotion, because you'd be going from one extreme to another, and as you do that, you'd be healing it. So if, for example, you experienced a very negative part in your day, like you had an argument, as you're reviewing this, imagine, for example, not so much getting rid of the argument, but having resolved it in a peaceful and efficient way wherein everybody wins, you know? You can do this with any other part of your day as well. So again, when you're rewriting, it's very important that you feel the emotion of the new story you want to tell, because feeling is what encodes the new story. So you genuinely have to feel better as you see this clip being replayed in your mind, the new version of it. So really try and be funny with it. And for example, I like to find the hilarity in situations. And I'll give you an example of this. One time I was having a conversation on the phone, and it wasn't the most pleasant one to have. And I was on the other side of the phone. I was being told this really, ridiculous story, and it's just very redundant. And I felt bad for the person, but again, it was still very, they clearly didn't want to do anything about it, and they were just venting. And at the same time, I didn't want to be rude and just hang up on them, but I genuinely wanted to feel better in that conversation, because I knew by doing that I'd be able to help. So there was something going around in my environment that helped me snap back out of that state of victimization, I guess. And it was nighttime, and in a nearby park there was these fireworks going off. And funny enough, these fireworks were in a sense going off in sync with the story that was being told to me through the phone. So I was being told this really sappy story, and here's these fireworks going off in the midair, and they're just going pew and making these really funny shapes and all droopy and stuff, and just in a sense mimicking and mocking the conversation, but making light of it. And that's how I interpret it. So it's really, on one hand you have one extreme, which is just, it's really funny that these fireworks are celebrating this lame ass conversation, and on the other hand I have this conversation. So focusing on the hilarity of it allowed me to get back into that good feeling state, and then I was able to more properly and appropriately take action. So that's one example of, for example, how you can really program that feeling, or that new feeling in, is just look for something funny, look for something beautiful. Really use your imagination, because that's your greatest asset when doing this kind of work. And might not work for everybody, but it's something that's really easy, really practical, easy enough for anyone to do. So I encourage you to, at the very least, give it a try with an open mind, and again, do it for fun, not like anything serious. It's all just a game anyways. So when you're doing review and rewrite, always remember, tell a story that you want to experience, as opposed to the one that makes you a victim. And really, by doing this, you're rewriting the story in your mind, and so you're in a sense rewriting the character or the personality. So instead of being someone who experiences really bad situations, after you do this scanning and the rewriting, you're actually a person that experiences only the best of situations. And I mean, it's all a game of beliefs, right? So you just got to really convince yourself of something, and not long after that you'll start to experience it. It's a very simple cause and effect type of law, and it's guaranteed to work every time. And no matter how you convince yourself, no matter how you create the programming or write it, it's still all just code, and it's still all just beliefs, and you're the creator of it all. So the power's really in your hands, and what you do with it is up to you as a creative being. So don't get lost in the personality of the character, because that's just there to help you become a better creator. And remember, you don't have to take any of this personally. This is all just a game for fun. And the more you start treating it like that, the less stressful you'll feel, the less pressure you'll feel around having to do certain things. And there's a sense of having to be grounded, and I understand that, and I encourage you to maintain that groundedness, because that's really what roots you on this planet, and it's very important. But at the same time, keep your feet rooted in the ground, but don't be afraid to keep your head up in the sky. And so long as you maintain that balance, you'll find that'll naturally make you a better person. Beliefs play a very important role in our lives, because they're the ones kind of determining what we observe in our realities and our environment. So the other day I was reflecting on how our definitions of love affect relationships. Now, first I want you to ask yourself, who are the gods of your universe? In other words, who teaches you about love? Now, when we're born, naturally it's our parents, and we look up to them, and we trust their wisdom and guidance, and they're the ones that teach us about love. But at the same time, when they discourage you from following your dreams, and they argue and they restrict your freedom, then that's in a sense teaching you that love is that. And really, love can be the most liberating thing. But again, these belief systems need to be reviewed. And so that begins by asking yourself, who is teaching you about love? Who do you look up to? Who is showing you what this feels like? How are you experiencing this? So as you review these beliefs, as you review who's currently been teaching you about what love is, you have to be willing to release everything you think you know it is. So that means having to let go of anything that you think is truth, having to be willing to change your definitions, and be open to experiencing more than your limited experience of it already. And then naturally, as you start to open up, and by opening up, you're just really dissolving the boundaries of the ego by releasing any expectations, any preconceived notions of what it should be. As you do that, you're in a sense opening the ego up, and as you do that, you let in truth. Because you see, ego does this funny thing wherein it observes reality, and then it creates a story on top of that. And this is where it's hard to see truth, because it gets confused in with the illusion that the ego has created. And so as you open up the boundaries that the ego is trying to maintain, you naturally let in more truth of who you are, and who that authentic being is beneath the ego, which is the reality of your true essence. Because again, the ego is something that's been created. It's an alter ego that's been created as a result of the experience and the environment in order to protect itself and its survival. So it's something very fear-based, and as we now know, fear does not exist. So ego can't really exist, and at the same time can't really know anything either. This is why people are all up about getting rid of it. But again, if you just open up, it'll naturally balance itself, because as you see the illusions for what they are, they'll naturally disappear, and it's all about just being honest with yourself. I mean, this is the fundamental key to opening up, is being honest with yourself. Because if you're not, then if you're not honest with yourself, you can't have what you want. Now that you've established who the gods of your universe are, what do you do about it? Well, who do you think God is? What's creating all of this? What's creating your experience? I mean, as a child, it might have been easy to see how it would have been your parents. But now that you're older, wiser, and more mature, you learn to realize that there's more to it than that. So really, when you break it down and you ask the question, what's creating all of this? And the answer to that question is you. Then doesn't that mean that you're God? Doesn't that mean you're the creator of this all, if you're the one determining how you experience it all? So if you're the God of your universe, what are you teaching yourself about love? And see, now this changes things because you get to totally redefine what you think it is. But again, you have to be honest with yourself about what you currently think it is. So if you think it's about, holding close and hanging on tight, then you need to be open to thinking that it's about, opening up and trusting. So this process won't really begin until you're willing to look at who you are right now, or who you think you are right now, in a very honest way. But see, now, realizing that you are the God of your experience, realizing the effects of you creating it, is what God realization is. It's realizing your creative power. And this creative power has no limit. This is the point of boundary dissolution. It's about going beyond your boundaries. And as you open up, you naturally do that. So now with the power back in your control, with the creative influence back in your control, you can now decide what love is. You can say it is the most liberating thing. You can say that love doesn't hurt. You can say that love empowers. You can say that love unifies. You can say that love is free. You can say love is all-encompassing. So as you redefine what it is, and as you embrace that creator role, your life already will begin to change. And this is an empowering thought, because now you have full control of what happens. I mean, this is the point of the game. Now it's where now is where it gets fun. And really, anything goes. So really search deep inside of you for what inspires you, what drives you, the beliefs you hold to be dearest and most true for you. Really challenge your values, to always expand them, to mature them, and to become a better person in every area of your life. And as you do that, the universe is all in favor for that, so you will get that support. Guaranteed.